and GameScoop.
Welcome back to GameScoop, everybody. I'm your host, Damon Hatfield. This is Greg Miller. Say something, so...
Hey, I was smiling as hard as I could. I wanted on the record I put my feet on the table first, but then just like everything in my career, Colin Moriarty copied me immediately following.
That is Colin Moriarty, and the last copier is Justin Davis.
We have a very casual feet on the table
Look at this,
today.
he's got trunks for legs, I
He's
tell you what.
been doing couples yoga. That's what couples yoga
That's true, hot yoga.
No, not
I keep saying it's hot because it sounds
just
hot.
It is kind of hot, but it's not the actual hot yoga.
You guys
My
doing like all
friends-
nudie patootie like? And like
My
you're in your
friends-
house, you're in your comfort of your
My
home.
friends. Our friend, Bruno Carrillo, in Sao Paulo, Brazil,
That's good.
is worried about the video game industry.
Okay.
He says, "Hi Damon, and IGN editors, guests of today's GameScoop. The recent layoffs at EA made me think something. EA is one of the most powerful and richest gaming companies in the world, and this recent layoffs, plus the CEO one," he means John Riccitiello, stepping down, "shows that things are not good for them. If you think of all the studios that closed last year, huge publishers like Square Enix that are having problems, and the recent need to charge extra for everything like tons of DLC and online passes, is this all the big warning of an imminent collapse in the industry as we know it, or are we already in crisis? Suddenly, for some reason, it looks like making games is not profitable enough to keep companies alive anymore. Do you guys know what is happening and why?" So, is the video game industry in crisis?
No.
Yes.
No way.
Tiebreaker.
No, it's not in the crisis.
So
Yay!
here's the deal. Here's what normally happens
deal.
on GameScoop. I say my piece, and then Colin sits here quiet, very like a hibernating bear, and then you say, "Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why you're wrong," and then you fold out some sheet of paper, and
Oh,
then
like
you
this
do. And so
Let's let it play out.
no. See, I'm gonna
you
make.
want-
I'm gonna
you want
make
him to go
Colin,
first.
I want Colin to go first.
All right,
Okay.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So, I have some statistics here, but the game industry is in flux right now. It's not
Yes.
in crisis at all. A lot of people are like, is this 1982, 1983 again? You have to understand what happened in 1983. What happened in 1983 was very specific, right? It was companies that had nothing to do with games, and some game companies getting in, making lots of shitty games to make lots of money or whatever. I mean, even Quaker Oats had a gaming division. So there was an inundation, a glut of terrible games that were out there, and game prices didn't collapse along with the quality of games, and thus there was a crash and kind of a reimagining of what video games would be with Nintendo when the NES came out. Well, Famicom first, and then the NES.
The Master System.
And of course, the Sega Master System. It's really not, like, the 1983 crash is really not as complex as people make it out to be. It really is a quality issue. What's happening now is that games are too expensive to make. And so, with everyone kind of competing with budgets and things of this nature, the budget of games go up and up. And we were talking a lot about Square Enix. He talked about Square Enix, where a game like Sleeping Dogs that sold almost 2 million copies isn't profitable, which is horrifying. But even worse is Tomb Raider, which sold 4 or 5 million copies.
3.5.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, 3.5 in the first 3 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up almost to where they expected it to be, and yet they expected it to be like somewhere in the 5 to 6 million range in the first month, and therefore isn't profitable. Now, that's a budgetary issue. That's not a game's not doing well issue. If a game sells, Greg and I talk about it all the time. If Sony had a game that sold, because they don't have many of them that sell this well, that sold 4 or 5 million copies, they'd be ecstatic to get a game to sell like
How
that.
much did God of War Ascension sell?
Well, the rumor is like 330,000 copies.
Sure, but they're not selling to. They'd be ecstatic because they're only selling on one platform instead of 2 or 3.
Yeah, but they only have like really 2 games this generation that have sold that much.
Yeah.
Period. God of War 3 and Gran Turismo 5.
Sure, but they're
That's
selling to less than half as many people.
Sure.
Okay,
But
that's all.
But the number is much, much lower.
yeah, but let me
Shut up, you said you
But let me break out my stats. See, now here's the interesting thing that I think is that the curve is actually up in terms of console sales, in terms of hardware sales. And that's a good sign not only for this generation, but for next generation. And I just grabbed some numbers that I thought were interesting. NES and Master System sold 71.9 million units, right?
What, combined?
Combined. SNES and Genesis sold 89.1 million units. N64, Saturn, and PlayStation 144.8 million.
Saturn
PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Xbox 200 million. 360, PlayStation 3, and Wii 252 million. Going up like this. Not to mention the fact that 360 and PS3 are both selling a couple 100,000 each every month in the United States alone, 7 and 8 years after they came out. The Wii U is obviously doing abysmally, but we can't extrapolate information from that based on next generation consoles until the PS4 and the 720 come out. So I guess what I'm saying is that hardware is selling, games are selling, but the budgets are what is the core of the problem right now, in my opinion.
It's a gigantic problem.
But people need to be more realistic. The industry's not crashing. The industry's not in trouble. Everything's going to readjust. The canary in the coal mine is THQ. By the way,
what's that?
The canary in the coal mine is THQ.
But that's what it costs to make a game these days.
No,
you
it doesn't.
Have to have
It doesn't.
voice acting and
It doesn't
motion
have to cost that.
capture, and
Yeah.
you know
It doesn't have
even
to
the
cost that.
art assets are like a tremendous investment.
It
that you have to
absolutely
make.
doesn't have to cost that much.
You need an army of artists to like make the environments that are in a modern game these days.
Let me ask you a question.
All right. Okay.
If it really needed to cost that much money, right? We have a student Naughty Dog, right? Naughty Dog makes a game every 2 years. Their games sell 2 to 3 million copies each. Uncharted 3 is probably the best selling of the Uncharted games, but these are games that sell a few million copies. Probably would sell much more than that. These games are profitable. Naughty Dog is considered the crown jewel of Sony's studio. These games have unparalleled production values, unparalleled voice acting, unparalleled graphics. Those games sell 2 to 3 million copies and are profitable. So a game doesn't need to cost that much to be profitable. Period.
I think with Tomb Raider, I think that marketing budget was very bloated.
It went the home front way of we're gonna get it everywhere in front of
Tomb
everyone
Raider
and try
is
to sell
everywhere,
a
and
ton
that
of copies.
I think that was a large.
Sure.
I mean, I think a
I'm
company.
gonna hibernate now.
Okay, I think a company like Naughty Dog is the exception, not the rule. I think the AAA games business is in big
All
trouble.
right, so lay it on us. Lay on your argument now.
So I am not as prepared as Colin Moriarty. I'm going to let you know right now. I don't have some secret statistical, thing that I'm going to.
Mr. Weatherby talking about Jughead's up here.
That's pretty true. I mean, I think the talk that I had at GDC, I had lots of meetings, mostly with mobile game developers. So maybe they're not, super unbiased when it comes to talking about the console space. But the thing that strikes me is you have a game like Tomb Raider that they did, Tomb Raider or Sleeping Dogs or lots of these games that underperformed. These are games that did everything right. So critics like the game a lot, gamers like the game a lot. They were marketed well. Tomb Raider had a few, sort of weird pieces of press, but generally, like that marketing campaign was impeccable. Everything from top to bottom was impeccable, and the game sold pretty well, and it's losing a tremendous amount of money. Like when that's happening, there should be fucking sirens going off in your head. That's when the klaxons start sounding, where it's like, you did everything right, and your game still lost money. That to me is a sign that the market is going away. Like that market is not there
To me,
anymore.
that's a sign of stupid people. I think of for people out there, think of the games industry as the ocean. The ocean isn't going anywhere, but the tides roll in and it looks awesome, and then they recede and come back and then back and forth like this. It's always ebbing
Like
and
what?
flowing. Like this. Like a lot of people don't know what the ocean is. They live in Iowa. They're like, ah! But
we know what the ocean is.
you go to Florida, you're freaking out. No, but yeah, you were talking about like that. Sirens should be going off for the people who made that game and made the marketing budget and totally overestimated what the video game market is.
It's like you can't. So it's like you have an old established brand like Tomb Raider, it loses money. You make a new IP like Sleeping Dogs, it loses money. People are tired of the existing franchises like Gears of War and God of War, they lose money. Like you can't win.
No,
and
you
Clash
can't.
of Clans,
And Clash of Clans makes $1 million a day.
I think it's more than that. I think it's more like $2.5 million a day. Supercell, the developer of Clash of Clans.
Yeah.
We're missing, I think, an important piece of context, though. And I'm not saying you're wrong in the sense that, like, the game. See, I look at the industry as it's a whole, right? And like the handheld market in terms of iOS and Android and all that stuff is obviously doing really well. There are a million games out there no one gives a shit about, no one ever heard of. People lose money. Those studios close down. You never hear about that. Now, a company. So that's like one piece of the puzzle. Another thing with Square Enix. Specifically about Square Enix is that it's not clear if the numbers for Crystal Dynamics and Tomb Raider or United Front Games and Sleeping Dogs was specifically pertaining to those games. That was what Square Enix, a publicly traded company, expected to make on those games. So we don't know if those games were actually profitable or not. That's unclear. And Square Enix makes awful decisions with its own properties that put it in the red, and then these games are expected to bring it back in the black. So these are important pieces of context that we're missing that we don't know. We're not in the shareholders meetings. We're not in the board meetings with Square Enix. That company's in a lot of trouble. Like, Square Enix is in a lot of trouble.
I think
not,
these
like-
examples are examples of mismanagement.
Right, exactly.
Whereas you
We're
look,
talking
you
about
know,
specific companies, not the
Exactly.
industry.
Like, look
Like,
at
if you're not-
Activision. Activision's doing fine.
I mean, sort of, but like, I feel like people have Call of Duty fatigue. They ran music games into the ground real quick. They ran Tony Hawk into the ground. They have World of Warcraft and they have Call of Duty and they have Skylanders. Like that's Activision.
How many
Sure.
phenomenally successful franchises does a company need?
Yeah, all they need is one of those.
That's true.
I mean, and understand too that when Prototype 2 came out and they shut that studio down, that game was probably actually profitable. The Activision's such a company that studies the numbers, that's actually really smart, whether you disparage them, whether or not people like them or not, that they got rid of that franchise and that developer because they were like, well, you're not making enough money. These guys aren't stupid over there. See, that's the difference between, and I'm not saying the people necessarily running Square Enix are stupid, but that's the difference between a company with some foresight and a company that makes bad Final Fantasy games that no one wants, and then has these Western developers and Western publishers. Deus Ex is another great example of a game that did actually really well, that is saving them from the red that their own games are making them. The Square Enix situation in particular is a very complicated issue, just like the THQ issue was, because Volition and Saints Row was a massively popular and massively profitable game, except for the fact that U-Draw was actually the reason that THQ started to tank. So it didn't matter how well something else did if everything else wasn't going right.
But it's like if you can have one bad decision and then it blows up your whole company, that means you're in a very precarious position to begin with.
There's no doubt about that, but we can't extrapolate that to the entire industry.
What happens to Activision? Like World of Warcraft subs are dipping. What happens to Activision if Call of Duty just people are like, we're kind of over it?
Well, they'd figure something else out.
I mean, maybe, but they're also a company why be in that business? That's a bad business. It's a dangerous, it's a roll of the dice every single time you make a $50 million game.
They had the most popular video game in the world for 10 years running. I think they did okay.
Activision's
you're
doing
talking
great.
about a future problem.
I'm not arguing that Activision's not doing great, but again, you can point to a couple companies and say, the biggest company in video games is making a lot of money.
It
It's
used to be
no
Activision
shit.
and EA is struggling recently. But again, I think it's because of mismanagement. Not
The idea of some AAA games are going to continue to be fine. Grand Theft Auto is going to sell however many copies it sells, 12 million copies. But anything below that AAA, there's not going to be A games anymore. That's done. Those days are over.
And now there's a huge pool of amazing independent games, small indie games. There's interesting games released on iOS every single day.
True. I guess that means it depends on what we talk about. I kickstart a lot of stuff, a lot of really interesting, weird, experimental games. And I hear, I met with, how many developers did I meet with at GDC? Over 30 that are making mobile games over and over and over again. They're like, I used to work for Volition, I used to work for whoever. I would work on cave textures for 2 years and the game would come out. It wasn't fulfilling me creatively. And now they're in charge of their own destiny making mobile games. I think that's cool.
That's very healthy.
That's cool. That's cool
the
for them
industry,
professionally. That's cool for me. That's what I'm into as a gamer. But if you're into really big experiences, I don't think there's going to be that many of them.
I mean, I think there are. I mean, as Colin, will. I think he'll agree with me on this. There is a demand for big AAA experiences. Yeah. Our society is built on supply and demand.
I don't think there's enough demand to meet the number of them that are released.
But that's why you just have to set your goals. People are setting the goalposts too far away, and then when they fall, and that's why the companies are in trouble.
We could have saved Square Enix so much trouble. Will Tomb Raider sell 6 million copies in a month?
No.
No way.
No, I mean, I could have told him that.
A lot of things you're talking about, I feel like you're talking about it in a light switch way, right? And the fact that, what if the Call of Duty fatigue sets in, it doesn't sell? It won't be, it goes from the most popular game to not being sold at all. There's decreases. Just like there needs to be a ramp up in increases. Sure. You can't come out of hibernation with Tomb Raider and be like, we're putting all the money into marketing. People love Lara Croft, it's going to be great. No, they should have, if they were worried about numbers and how this is, start small, have a huge hit, build up a little bit more, build up a little bit more. It's like Uncharted, right?
But it's
Uncharted
so
3
expensive
had this
to make those games.
Subway and all this other crap. I know.
It is expensive, but just keep your costs in check.
Yeah.
It's all budgets. It's all SimCity.
How many big AAA movies are released a year? Big tentpole summer movies.
Lots of them.
Yeah, and there's a lot, but not that you can count them. We could name them all, but there's so many big bet games. There's way too many big bet games, I think.
I think they're pretty similar. I think the as games become more and more cinematic, I think the industry will look a lot like the movie industry, where there's a healthy release schedule of blockbuster titles and smaller independent films. They have small budgets and they don't make as much as the box office, but it's okay because they didn't cost that much to make.
I agree, but my point is that there's not. I agree that the games industry is going to look more like the movie industry, but I don't see there being that many big blockbuster movies every year. Each company has a couple, and that's it. That's their bets.
We're gonna talk about that in a second. We're gonna see you're wrong.
I don't know. I just don't think we're looking at it the right way. I mean, the numbers are very clear in terms of hardware. Gaming is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and in more homes and more homes.
No one's making any money.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I mean, that's simply not true. The fact is that, and I think it's a little bit hypocritical to say Yeah, Sony shut down Sony Liverpool and Big and all these, and THQ's shitting the bed. How many literally thousands of iOS developers have just disappeared out of nowhere because no one cares about their games? It is the same thing. And when I went to, it's just on a smaller scale because the investment is smaller. It's really the same principle. And when I went to GDC and I was at a few panels, I went to a Vita panel in particular, and the interesting thing they were talking about is Vita might have sold 5 million units. It's not doing very well. These guys are making lots of money on the Vita. Because there is a dedicated, they're like, we can make much more money putting Guacamelee on Vita than we can put Guacamelee on iOS, because not only is it unplayable on iOS, and those games will always be unplayable on a touchscreen, but that we have a more dedicated fan base that will play more for their games, and they're looking for content, and it's not saturated. Yeah. Their problem is the exact opposite, that even though there's not a lot of handhelds out there, that there's not a lot of games, and so they're able to make more money because of the saturation point that will always be iOS's Achilles heel until they figure that out. And for every success story, for every I don't even know any of these, really a lot of these games. Yeah, Rovio or all these other studios. For every success story, there are 1,000 studios that just disappear, and you read about them all the time. And when I say 1,000, I'm being pretty literal because these guys are making games in their bedrooms or in their houses.
Just a guy like I want to make iOS games.
Yeah, and then he puts it out, and no one buys it, and that's the end of that. But you don't hear those kinds of stories. I think it's because there's more monetary investment. I think Justin's right in the sense that there's a lot of it's a situation. It's in flux, but I'm distressed by the fact that people think hardware. Consoles are dying specifically based on Wii U's performance, which I really think is like what a lot of people are kind of pulling out the last few months, that Wii U is tanking. But we'll really know what Justin's saying is true or not in about a year or so. If the PS4 and the 720 don't each sell extraordinarily well when they come out, which is entirely possible, then we'll know that gaming as we know it is in decline and things are shifting. But people are always going to want to play games.
Yeah, I do want to say, I stand by my statements, but the caveat would be, like, we haven't seen a console generation go on this long. So it's like, that could be a big part of why things look the way that they look today. And maybe, 12 months from now, things will look very different.
But I'm sorry, I know you probably want to move on, but I was just going to say, too, like, that's true. That's bad for publishers, but it's actually really good for hardware manufacturers because PS3 and Xbox 360 are nothing but profit right now. And now they're selling hundreds of thousands of these a month just to people that still don't have them, with install bases of like 77 million PlayStation 3s already out there. That's getting close to PS1 numbers. PS1's considered a huge success. There's a great software attach rate on PlayStation and Xbox. The reason I think God of War Ascension and Gears of War Judgment didn't do well are because these are two games that aren't numerical sequels.
They're stopgaps. They're a symptom of the generation going on so long.
Even though God of War Ascension sold a third as much as God of War 3, 3 years ago in the same period of time, it's because it's an online multiplayer game. Not people are kind of waiting. I think we just don't have all the information yet too to kind of like put the RIP fucking tombstone in the ground for console gaming. I don't know.
Most of us, the three of us, 75% of us seem to agree that Crisis is maybe a little exaggerated. That maybe the industry is in flux. It's definitely changing, but me and I think you guys will agree that we still see a lot of health in the industry.
Yeah, we just see. I mean, Tomb Raider is not the only great game that sold well that then the company went bankrupt. Like, there's lots of examples over the last 12 months.
THQ is a great example. Like I said, with Saints Row and Homefront, which was another profitable game.
That's true.
But bad decisions, like Damon was saying, doomed that company no matter how well those games did. And that's the troubling part of it. And I really just think that we need more evidence. But I'm telling you, man, like the hardware is still selling. People still want these games. And publishers and especially developers still need to figure out new ways to make money, and that's what he was kind of alluding to in his letter there, where it's like online passes are not so they really can make money; they're to stop used game sales.
Yeah.
But and the microtransactions in the games like Dead Space 3 actually did extraordinarily well, even though everyone's complaining about them. So that was a vocal minority.
Yeah,
and really, those things actually sold and did really well with very little overhead. So they'll figure out new ways.
It's right that's another ebb and flow of the industry, right? That you hire people as you ramp up to launch a game, you launch the game, and you lay them off. Like, people know that, and they get turnover. Now, granted, I know with LucasArts and blah 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 blah. The companies that are getting wiped out, different story. But every time you hear that so-and-so developers laid off X%, it's not that they're going away, it's that their project's done, now they need to get into pre-production on the next thing.
Okay, now it's time for this segment's surprise topic. Summer movie preview.
Oh!
We've got the full issue. We have the list here. Let's go through.
Let me see the Superman stuff. I haven't seen the Superman stuff.
Well, let's look. Maybe you can read it after Game Scoop.
Yeah. No, we're gonna go through the big releases of the summer, and we'll give it a yay or a nay, or a scoop or no scoop, or something.
Scoop or no scoop.
Obviously, we can start with the first one.
Two scoops.
The new trailer for Man of Steel is out recently. You're excited about this one.
Yeah.
We're gonna give this one.
Scoop.
Have you noticed? This is a still from the trailer here. What's Superman wearing on his shirt there.
He's wearing, yes, he's in the Kansas Jayhawks. That's where it's Smallville, Kansas.
I thought
obviously.
the asteroid crashed in Missouri.
No, you made up that. Yeah, that's what you made up in statistics. Here's something I propose to the GameScoop audience that I find interesting. At no point have we seen or heard anything about bespectacled Clark Kent working at the
being a
Daily
journalist,
Planet.
yeah. It may
Yeah.
have
I
changed
wonder
that.
if that's the final shot.
Apparently
him going to
they're
the Daily
like
Planet, pushing
not.
it.
They might not even call him Superman in the movie, right? In the trailer, they show that she's like, "Why don't we call you?" She doesn't even say it, right? So
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
but I
know.
think that's some clever editing. He'll be
Maybe.
Superman, I think, in the
Okay.
movie.
Great Gatsby.
No,
Yeah,
thanks.
don't know about that one. Iron Man 3
Yeah.
is coming out very soon. Yeah,
Scoop.
you're into that one?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of.
I didn't like
feel-
Iron Man 2, but Avengers
Yeah.
was great.
Well, yeah, but it's not the same. It's not Joss Whedon.
I
making
know,
Iron Man
I'm
3.
aware. I'm not.
It is the guy who wrote Lethal Weapon and Monster Squad.
Oh,
So it's
Monster
got
Squad, yeah.
that going for it. Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah, love the
Yeah.
first one.
I'd say big yeah. Bit like Benedict Cumberbatch a lot.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I don't know
Sherlock.
who that is.
Sherlock. Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Did
He's
you
also
say yes
got-
or no to Star Trek?
I don't really care about any of these movies. So much. Yeah.
Can I just say that
No,
Benedict,
Red Dawn 2 coming
He just
out.
gets up, yanks the mic, and gone.
Benedict Cumberbatch is probably the coolest name.
Yeah,
That's a really
it's
cool
pretty
name.
good. The Hangover Part 3 is coming.
No.
No.
We don't need
Even though I
that.
did eventually see on cable Hangover 2, and it was good.
No,
I laughed.
it's
I had fun.
not.
Really?
I had fun. It was a dumb movie. What did you expect? I mean, I wasn't going in expecting Citizen Kane.
Fast and Furious 6.
Yes.
Yes.
I've never seen a Fast and
I can get
Furious
down with
movie.
that.
Are we having that marathon?
We are gonna
We're
fix
gonna, yeah,
that.
we're gonna have
I
a
know.
marathon of
We
all
were
of them.
doing that. There's apparently a comedy called The Heat with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy.
Absolutely not.
No, stop. Sandra Bullock is the worst.
Everybody
The
likes
worst?
Melissa.
Yeah, she's the worst.
Everybody likes
Wow.
Melissa.
Yeah, like her.
Yeah.
So just give her her own movie.
Why
She
do you
doesn't need to
hate- why do you
Sandra
hate
Bullock.
Sandra
She's
Bullock
not-
so much?
She's not funny.
Wildcat speed, then she's wearing the jacket, and that's when he finds out that he's got the camera in the thing. He's calling her Wildcat.
Oh, okay.
White House Down coming from Roland Emmerich.
Sounds
Don't know
good.
anything about that
Apparently
one.
they terrorists take over the White House. And
What was the other
there's
one?
Why would they take
explosions.
over the White
Olympus
House?
has fallen.
Olympus Has Fallen.
Yeah,
Why would they
I
take
know.
over-
They're very similar movies.
Why would they? See that? That doesn't make any sense.
Will Smith has After Earth
Yeah,
with
Yeah,
Gary
his
Whitta.
son. With his son,
Got that Gary Whitta.
Gary Whitta wrote
Yeah,
that.
his
M. Night
son-
Shyamalan.
Nice.
Jaden Smith, who was in The Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, it's M. Night Shyamalan.
And Gary Whitta.
I
wrote
love
He
it.
does
Gary
not
Whitta.
make. You love him?
The first
No,
four
but look,
movies
look,
he did were
look.
awesome.
He didn't write this one. Like he's just directing it.
Dude,
Gary
but
Whitta
like,
wrote it.
but Sixth Sense and Signs,
Yeah.
and The Village, and Unbreakable, those are awesome.
Unbreakable.
I
I
love those
like the old one.
Village.
I like the old one.
I wasn't.
What about Airbender though? Nope.
I didn't
Can't
see
get
it.
behind that.
Of course.
What's
this,
the wind one with Marky Mark? Remember
Oh,
nature?
yeah.
Oh,
rebelling
it's happening.
against
The Happening.
The Hap-
It's happening.
It's happening.
A sequel to What's Happening.
This is the end. Is obviously going to be the funniest. You guys don't even know.
No, yeah, I do. The one.
Seth
with,
Rogen, James Franco,
yeah.
Jonah Hill, Danny McBride, all those guys.
gonna be great.
God, it looks so funny. World War Z with Brad Pitt.
Yes.
That movie was in hell for a while.
That's
right?
what I said. Like
Oh,
they,
yeah.
I heard the rumors. I mean, they're not like real rumors, but just like Entertainment Weekly rumors, were that they had to do a ton of reshoots. Like they reshot like a third of the movie to change the ending all around. It was in flux and it was not going to come out, and there's all
Yeah,
this
I don't
drama.
know. I don't know
I
about
was
like,
not
it looks-
crazy
I'm
about
still excited for it.
I know. I'm very like the trailers and everything looks really cool, but I'm skeptical.
I don't like the way the book was written, so it kind of.
Yeah,
Oh, I love the book.
Joss Whedon has Much Ado About Nothing. No, you see, you
No,
don't.
thanks.
Much Ado About Nothing. Like
Yeah, he has his own like stylish take on it with Nathan Fillion.
Cool.
in there, too. You don't like Joss Whedon? What's
that
the
could be
problem?
cool.
I like him fine. That's not enough to get me to go see it.
Monsters University. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your problem?
I'll see it on DVD or digital.
You gonna see it on
video.
DVD? When's the last time you saw anything on DVD?
There's a Lone Ranger with Johnny Depp as
Nope.
Tonto. No,
Nope.
I don't think so. I don't think I'll be seeing them.
Will Johnny Depp play the same character he plays in every
Yeah.
single movie that he's
he
in?
will.
Yeah, we'll be doing that one. There's Pacific Rim. I'm really excited for Pacific Rim.
Yeah. Maybe it's
I
gonna be
didn't
great.
like the Motorstorm game, so I don't see why this won't be any different.
It's not going to be the
Yeah,
same
Pacific
thing.
Rim looks so good.
PlayStation jokes.
There's Wolverine in July.
Yeah.
So I hope Wolverine's good.
Yeah,
rated
X-Men
R,
Origins.
right?
Yeah, Wolverine's X-Men Origins sucked, so we'll see how
he
this
finally
one
he has blood on his claws.
Yeah.
Is that based on the Raven game?
And
I
yeah.
hope.
And it's set in Japan, and Japan is the best. Japan is the opposite of Sandra Bullock, basically. There's a Smurfs 2. There's
No.
a cartoon called Turbo with a snail.
No.
Let's see here. Oh, there's Red 2. Remember that movie Red with all the old like CIA agents?
John
Bruce
Malkovich
Willis and John
and
Malkovich.
Bruce
They're making it
Willis.
Red 2. Isn't that crazy?
Really?
Yeah.
Sequelitis.
Now there's Elysium. This is the
Yeah.
District 9 guy.
Oh man, it's
Did
gonna
you
be
see that
so
trailer?
good.
Oh, you
The
gotta
trailer
watch the
is
trailer.
incredible,
Yeah.
and District 9 was so good.
Yeah.
Neil,
Look
he
how
still wants to make
crazy-
the Halo
look how
movie.
crazy Matt Damon looks.
I don't think I saw District 9. Was that like kind of the alien take on like the apartheid or whatever?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's really.
I'll loan
really
it to
good.
you. I love it.
Okay. I'd like that.
There's something called The Mortal Instruments. I think it's based on a young adult book. You gotta stop making these young adult books into movies.
They make money though.
Isn't
No.
that the sequel to the?
stop
That's
doing
the one
it.
with the talking polar bear, right? Or is that a different one?
No.
There are a lot of movies coming out this summer.
I heard they were
That's what
making.
I'm talking about.
Speaking
That's
of,
why, Justin was just saying, oh, there aren't many blockbusters.
what was the
movies.
movie you just
That's
mentioned? That
true.
was the
There's a
young adult?
million of them.
What's
What,
it?
what was the young adult?
The Mortal Instruments.
Oh, okay. I heard that they're making The Giver into a movie,
Yeah, I heard
which
that
is like
See, there's another Percy.
Awesome.
There's another
Wake
Percy
me when
Jackson.
it's the receiver.
Terrible, terrible. There's another Percy Jackson movie comes out. Make movies for 35-year-old dudes. I think that's
yeah.
that's the demographic you want to go.
35-year-old dudes are too tired to go out and see movies.
That's true. I'm going to see a movie on Friday. Kick-Ass 2 is coming.
Yeah.
It's gonna be really good.
Maybe.
No, it's gonna be good.
You're such a hater.
I'm not a hater. I've said I love lots of things.
I
you
will see
hated on.
Those are
maybe
most of the big ones.
maybe
Roll it up, hit me
2
with
of
it.
those. movies.
Which ones?
I don't
Which
know.
two?
I don't know. Just any 2 of them.
Okay.
Wow,
No,
they're,
I don't
they're
know.
really trying hard on the
one about the White
subhead
House.
Here, huh?
No, what do you
Man of Steel, Superman gets all hot and modern. All right.
Jesus.
It's pretty good.